Okay, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, please, let's do a do now. And here it is, do now set 3. And it's about circles and stuff. Well, circles. Um, so there's some radius, there's some diameter, circumference, area. If you can't remember the formulae, sing them to yourself. You are going to need a calculator. So if you don't have one, pause the video now, go get one and restart it. If you haven't got an actual calculator, use your phone. If you turn it sideways, it usually turns into a scientific calculator, and you're going to need that because you're going to need that pi button, okay? At the very least, use your computer or something as a calculator. And I want you to, as always, to have a go at everything. Nothing should be left undone. You can then check it against my answers, even if you get it wrong. Just have a go, okay? That's the important thing, just like in a test. Right, you have 5 minutes, starting from now. Okay, time's up. Write down the radius and the diameter of this circle. So R equals and D equals. Right, the radius only goes half the way across. Goes from the center half the way across. Well, if it's 8 all the way across, the radius must be 4 half the way across. What they've got measured there, which goes all the way across, is the diameter all the way from one side to the other through the center. And the radius is always half the diameter, because the diameter always goes all the way across, the radius goes half the way across. Circumference and area. Let's do circumference first. So circumference equals, and you know the song, circumference is pi times diameter. You don't just times it by whatever number you're given, you times it by whatever the diameter is. So I always write R equals and D equals for each question, so I can just double check which I've got. Now the one they've given us here, this 5 centimeters, is all the way across. So that's the diameter. It's the big word, diameter. The small word, radius, only goes half the way across. That must be half of 5, which is 2.5 centimeters. Okay? Right, but I want to do pi times diameter, pi times diameter, pi times diameter. Circumference is pi times diameter. I've typed it in my calculator. Type it in, pi times 5, and you get 15.70796. Ooh, that's a 6. Etc, etc, etc. Okay? Now, it didn't say to round on here, but it's always a fair idea to do so. And usually, if it doesn't give you any kind of rounding to work by, I'd maybe go 1 decimal place. It's usually pretty safe. The 7, the next one across is a 0, so my 7 stays as it is. And circumference is just the distance, so it's centimeters. It's how far it is around the outside, 15.7. Let's change pen. Let's go to red. Right, area is the space inside the shape, so all the way inside there. And area is pi r squared. Pi times by radius squared. Well, pi is just the button on your calculator. The radius, we've already worked out, half the way across, is 2.5, and it's squared, radius squared. Now, if you don't have a square button, you can always do pi times 2.5 times 2.5. It's the same thing, because squared just means times by itself. So pi times 2.5 times 2.5 is, press SD, 19.6349554, etc, etc, etc. I'm going to round it to 1 decimal place. 19 point, well, that's 6.3. Now the 3 means my 6 stays as it is, doesn't round up. Now this time it's area, so it's centimeters squared. We were working in centimeters. Area is always a unit squared, so it's centimeters squared in this case. Right, perimeter and area. We'll do the area first on this, and we'll come to the perimeter in a minute. Now, area of the semicircle. Well, area of a circle is pi times by radius squared, as we said. Semicircle is half of it. That's what semi means. It means half. So half of pi times radius squared. Do pi times radius squared and then halve it. So half of, so half times pi times by, but let's make sure we got this right. So let's do r equals and d equals. What have I been given? I've been given the diameter. Because that would be, if the whole circle was there, that would be all the way across. Now the radius is only from the center to the outside, so that's going to be half of it, which is 4. So half times pi times 4 squared, or if you haven't got a squared button on your calculator, say maybe 0.5 as a half, times by pi, times by 4 times by 4, if you haven't got a squared button. And it is 25.1327 4, etc., etc., etc. Round it to 1 decimal place again. Again, the next number across is a 3, so my 1 stays the same, and it is centimeters squared. Yeah. So pi times 4 squared, and then halve it. Is that. Okay, perimeter. Perimeter. I could have actually, I've just realised, of course, we could have put these in terms of pi. You might have just written 5 pi. As long as you've written centimetres, you'll be fine. Or over here, it would be a slightly weird decimal. It would be, you might have done 6. Why is my pad sometimes not so great? 6 point, to come on computer, 25 pi, and that would be centimetres squared, if you were doing it in terms of pi. Right. And this one down here, I believe, is 8 pi centimetres squared. Come on, computer, you can hold out to the end of this one. Perimeter. Now, this is a perimeter because there's 2 parts to the perimeter. There's the arc. Now, the arc is the curved bit. And then there's the flat bit. The fit? No. Flat part. There's the flat part across the bottom. If you're doing perimeter, you need all of the outside. So we'll work out the curved bit first and then the flat bit. Now, the flat bit's easy because it's 8 centimetres. It's just the diameter. Now, the arc, if we work out the whole of the circumference, the whole circle, we know that circumference is pi times diameter, pi times diameter, pi times diameter. But we've got a semicircle. We've got half of it. So I just halve it. Half of pi times diameter. So half. Oh, come on, computer. You can do this. Times by pi. Come on. Times by, my diameter is 8. Which equals, let's do this to 1 decimal place as well. Times by pi, times by 8 is, press SD, 12 point. Right, computer, you are being silly. 12.5, just going to have to go slow, 6, 6, etc. And you add those 2 bits together to get the perimeter. Right, seriously, computer, what's the matter? Am I being all weird? So we add 8 and the 12.5666 whatever to get 20, and to 1 decimal place, because there's 6 there, the 5 is going to get rounded up to a 6. So you add together the arc and the flat bit to get the total perimeter. Otherwise, you've only got half the outside, not all of it. Yeah, 20.6 centimeters. Right. Okay. Off to the main lesson. Farewell.